Om. Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharma swarupine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. Om. Salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, the establisher of a spiritual essence, of the spiritual essence of Dharma. Salutations to him whose life is the true essence of all Dharmas, who is the incarnation in whose life spirituality manifested itself with the widest expanse and deepest depth at the same time. I offer my salutations to him again and again. We are reading from the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, chapter 1, Master and Disciple. I'm going to start somewhere.
We just stop.
Where it makes kind of like where it makes sense, right? I mean, Master and
This was M's first argument with the master.
okay, very good. This was M's first argument with the Master, and happily his last. Master, you were talking of worshipping the clay image. Even if the image is made of clay, there is need for that sort of worship. God himself has provided different forms of worship. He who is the Lord of the universe has arranged all these forms to suit different men in different stages of knowledge. The mother cooked these different dishes to suit the stomachs of her different children. Suppose she has 5 children. If there is a fish to cook, she prepares various dishes from it. Pilau, pickled fish, fried fish, and so on, to suit their different tastes and powers of digestion. Do you understand me? M. humbly. Yes, sir. How, sir, may we fix our minds on God? Master, repeat God's name and sing his glories, and keep holy company, and now and then visit God's devotees and holy men. The mind cannot dwell on God if it is immersed day and night in worldliness, in worldly duties and responsibilities. It is most necessary to go into solitude now and then and think of God. To fix the mind on God is very difficult in the beginning unless one practices meditation in solitude. When a tree is young, it should be fenced all around, otherwise it may be destroyed by cattle. To meditate, you should withdraw within yourself or retire to a secluded corner or to the forest. And you should always discriminate between the real and the unreal. God alone is real, the eternal substance. All else is unreal, that is, impermanent. By discriminating thus, one should shake off impermanent objects from the mind. M. humbly. How ought we to live in the world? Master, do all your duties, but keep your mind on God. Live with wife and children, father and mother, and serve them. Treat them as if they were very dear to you, but know in your heart of hearts they do not belong to you. A maidservant in the house of a rich man performs all sorts of household duties, but her thoughts are fixed on her own home in her native village. She brings up her master's children as if they were her own. She even speaks of them as my Rama or my Hari. But in her own mind, she knows very well that they do not belong to her at all. The tortoise moves about in the water, but can you guess where her thoughts are? There on the bank, where her eggs are lying. Do all your duties in the world, but keep your mind on God. If you enter the world without first cultivating love for God, you will be entangled more and more. You will be overwhelmed with its danger, its grief, its sorrows. And the more you think of worldly things, the more you will be attached to them. First, rub your hands with oil and then break open the jackfruit. Otherwise, they will be smeared with its sticky milk. First secure the oil of divine love, and then set your hands to the duties of the world. But one must go into solitude to attain this divine love. To get butter from milk, you must let it set into curd in a secluded spot. If it is too much disturbed, the milk won't turn into curd. Next, you must put aside all other duties, sit in a quiet spot, and churn the curd. Only then do you get butter. Further, by meditating on God in solitude, the mind acquires knowledge, dispassion, and devotion, but the very same mind goes downward if it dwells in the world. In the world, there is only one thought: woman and gold, lust and greed. The world is water, and the mind milk. If you pour milk into water, they become one. You cannot find the pure milk anymore, but turn the milk into curd and churn it into butter. Then, when that butter is placed in the water, it will float. So practice spiritual discipline in solitude and obtain the butter of knowledge and love. Even if you keep that butter in the water of the world, the two will not mix. The butter will float. Together with this, you must practice discrimination. Lust and greed are impermanent. God is the only eternal substance. What does a man get with money? Food, clothes, and a dwelling place. Nothing more. You cannot realize God with its help. Therefore, money can never be the goal of life. That is the process of discrimination. Do you understand? Yes, sir. I recently read a Sanskrit play called Prabodha Chandrodhyaya. It deals with discrimination. Master, yes. Discrimination about objects. Consider what is there in the money or in a beautiful body. Discriminate and you will find that even the body of a beautiful woman consists of bones, flesh, fat, and other disagreeable things. Why should a man give up God and direct his attention to such things? Why should a man forget God for their sake? Is it possible to see God? Master, yes, certainly. Living in solitude, now and then, repeating God's name and singing His glories, and discriminating between the real and the unreal, these are the means to employ to see Him. Under what conditions does one see God? Master, cry to the Lord with an intensely yearning heart, and you will certainly see Him. People shed a whole jug of tears for wife and children. They swim in tears for money. But who weeps for God? Cry to Him with a real cry. The Master sang, cry to your mother, Shyama, with a real cry, O mind, and how she hold herself from you. And how can she hold herself from you? How can Shyama stay away? How can your mother Kali hold herself away? O mine, if you are in earnest, bring her an offering of bell leaves and hibiscus flowers. Lay at her feet your offering, and with it mingle the fragrant sandal paste of love. Continuing, he said, longing is like the rosy dawn. After the dawn, out comes the sun. Longing is followed by the vision of God. God reveals Himself to a devotee who feels drawn to Him by the combined force of these three attractions: the attraction of worldly possessions for the worldly man, the child's attraction for its mother, and the husband's attraction for the chaste wife. If one feels drawn to Him by the combined force of these three attractions, then through it one can attain Him. The point is to love God even as the mother loves her child, the chaste wife her husband, and the worldly man his wealth. Add together these three forces of love, these three powers of attraction, and give it all to God. Then you will certainly see Him. It is necessary to pray to Him with a longing heart. The kitten knows only how to call its mother, crying mew mew. It remains satisfied wherever its mother puts it. And the mother cat puts the kitten sometimes in the kitchen, sometimes on the floor, and sometimes on the bed. When it suffers, it cries only mew mew. That's all it knows. But as soon as the mother hears this cry, wherever she may be, she comes to the kitten. It was Sunday afternoon when M came on his third visit to the Master. He had been profoundly impressed by his first two visits to this wonderful man. He had been thinking of the Master constantly and of the utterly simple way he explained the deep truth of the spiritual life. Never before had he met such a man. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting on a small couch. The room was filled with devotees who had taken advantage of the holiday to come to see the Master. M had not yet become acquainted with any of them, so he took his seat near in a corner. The Master smiled as he talked with the devotees. He addressed his words particularly to a young man of 19 named Narendranath, who was a college student and frequented the Sadharan Brahmo Samaj. His eyes were bright, his words were full of spirit, and he had the look of a lover of God. M guessed that the conversation was about worldly men who look down on those who aspire to spiritual things. The Master was talking about the great number of such people in the world and about how to deal with them. Master to Narendra: how do you feel about it? Worldly people say all kinds of things about the spiritually minded. But look here. When an elephant moves along the street, any number of curs and other small animals may bark and cry after it, but the elephant doesn't even look back at them. If people speak ill of you, what will you think of them? Narendra: I shall think that dogs are barking at me. Master smiling: oh no, you mustn't go that far, my child. Laughter. God dwells in all beings. You may be intimate only with good people. You must keep away from the evil-minded. God is even in the tiger, but you cannot embrace the tiger on that account. You may say, why run away from the tiger, which is also a manifestation of God? The answer to that is, those who tell you to run away are also manifestations of God, and why shouldn't you listen to them? Let me tell you a story. In a forest, there lived a holy man and had many disciples. One day, he taught them to seek God in all beings and, knowing this, to bow low before all of them. The disciple went to the forest to gather wood for the sacrificial fire. Suddenly, he heard an outcry: get out of the way! A mad elephant is coming. All but the disciple of the holy man took to their heels. He reasoned that the elephant was also God in another form. Then why should he run away from it? He stood still, bowed before the animal, and began to sing its praises. The mahout of the elephant was shouting, run away, run away. But the disciple didn't move. The animal seized him with its trunk, cast him to one side, and went on his way. Hurt and bruised, the disciple lay unconscious on the ground. Hearing what had happened, his teacher and his brother's disciples came to him and carried him to the hermitage. With the help of some medicine, he soon regained consciousness. Someone asked him, you knew the elephant was coming. Why didn't you leave the place? But he said, our teacher has told us that God himself has taken all these forms of animals as well as men. Therefore, thinking it was only the elephant god that was coming, I didn't run away. At this, the teacher said, "Yes, my child, it is true that the elephant god was coming, but the Mahout god forbade you to stay there. Since all are manifestations of God, why didn't you trust the Mahout's words? You should have heeded the words of the Mahout God." Laughter. It is said in the scriptures that water is a form of God, but some water is fit to be used for the worship, some water for washing the face, and some only for washing plates or dirty linen. This last sort cannot be used for drinking or for holy purpose. In like manner, God undoubtedly dwells in the hearts of all, holy and unholy, righteous and unrighteous. But a man should not have dealings with the unholy, the wicked, the impure. He must not be intimate with them. With some of them he may exchange words, but with others he shouldn't go even that far. He should keep aloof from such people. A devotee. If a wicked man is about to do harm, or actually does so, should we keep quiet then? Master, a man living in society should make a show of tamas to protect himself from evil-minded people. But should he not harm anybody in anticipation of harm likely to be done him? Listen to a story. Some cowherd boys used to tend their cows in a meadow where a terrible poisonous snake lived. Everyone on the alert for fear of it. Everyone was on the alert for fear of it. One day, a brahmachari was going along the meadow. The boys ran to him and said, "Revered sir, please don't go that way. A venomous snake lives over there." "What of it, my good children?" said the brahmachari. "I am not afraid of a snake. I know some mantras." So saying, he continued on his way along the meadow. But the cowherd boys, being afraid, did not accompany him. In the meantime, the snake moved swiftly towards him with upraised hood. As soon as it came near, he recited a mantra, and the snake lay at his feet like an earthworm. The brahmachari said, "Look here, why do you go about doing harm? Come, I will give you a holy word. By repeating it, you will learn to love God. Ultimately, you will realize Him, and so get rid of your violent nature." Saying this, he taught the snake a holy word and initiated him into spiritual life. The snake bowed before the teacher and said, "Revered sir, how shall I practice a spiritual discipline?" "Repeat that sacred word," said the teacher, "and do not harm anybody." As he was about to depart, the brahmachari said, "I shall see you again." Some days passed, and the cowherd boys noticed that still it showed no anger. It behaved as if it were an earthworm. One day, one of the boys came close to it, caught it by the tail, and whirling round and round, dashed it again and again on the ground and threw it away. The snake vomited blood and became unconscious. It was stunned. It could not move. So, Thinking it dead, the boys went their way. Late at night, the snake regained consciousness. Slowly, with great difficulty, it dragged itself into its hole. Its bones were broken, and it could scarcely move. Many days passed. The snake became a mere skeleton covered with skin. Now and then, at night, it would come out in search of food. For fear of the boys, it would not leave its hole during the daytime. Since receiving the sacred word from the teacher, it had given up doing harm to others. It maintained its life on dirt, leaves, and other fruits that dropped from the trees. About a year later, the brahmachari came that way again and asked after the snake. The cowherd boys told him that it was dead, but he couldn't believe them. He knew that the snake would not die before attaining the fruit of the holy word with which it had been initiated. He found his way to the place and, searching here and there, called it by the name he had given it. Hearing the teacher's voice, it came out of its hole and bowed before him with great reverence. "How are you?" asked the brahmachari. "I am well, sir," replied the snake. But the teacher asked, "Why are you so thin?" The snake replied, "Revered sir, you ordered me not to harm anybody, so I have been lying only on leaves and fruit. So I have been living only on leaves and fruit. Perhaps that was what made me thinner." The snake had developed the quality of sattva. It could not be angry with anyone. It had totally forgotten that the cowherd boys had almost killed it. The brahmachari said, "It cannot be mere want of food that has reduced you to this state. There must be some other reason. Think a little." Then the snake remembered that the boys had dashed it against the ground. It says, "Yes, revered sir, now I remember. The boys one day dashed me violently against the ground. They are ignorant after all. They didn't realize what a great change had come over my mind. How could they know I wouldn't bite or harm anyone?" The brahmachari explained, "What a shame. You are such a fool. You don't know how to protect yourself. I asked you not to bite, but I didn't forbid you to hiss. Why didn't you scare them by hissing? So you must hiss at wicked people. You must frighten them, lest they should do harm to you. But never inject your venom into them. One must not injure others." Well, I will continue, but I was told half an hour. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om peace, peace, peace. I don't know if you do any interaction or questions. Anybody has got questions about these beautiful words? So wise he was, huh? Amazing. Yes. It could be tricky. It could. I see. I thought you were talking otherwise. Sometimes it's hard to discriminate who is, the one who could or may harm you. But okay, how to control yourself, no? How to control that hissing. Yeah, it is true. Well, we can always say sorry. We can always say, hey, I'm sorry. I went too far. I think the magic word, works pretty well. We should be humble to recognize whenever we are wrong, no? That really heals and everything, really cures everything. Anybody else would like to say something?
Do you think in that case it's whether you actually feel anger, and then you know you're not hissing, you're putting forth too much emotion, an angry feel.
Well, it's hard because when we get angry, we get angry. I think we should measure our words. I mean, none of us who's, committed to spiritual practices would go that far to say bad words. And if that happened, you are clearly angry. And then, you can repair that. I think sometimes when the damage is made. But it's important that we control our emotions, of course.
Remember reading something about a samurai warrior who was in the employ of the shogun, and he was sent out to dispatch someone who was an enemy, and he was winning the battle, but he stopped suddenly and walked off. And everyone said, "Why did you do that?" He said, "I got angry at him, and it was personal."
Mm,
And that's not what I do.
right.
And so, I don't know.
Yeah, it's very subtle. I mean, I wouldn't say it's dangerous, but I think the majority of us that are committed to spiritual practices, if we are truly committed and we are disciplined, we kind of keep our mind cool and we keep that discriminative capacity, that discernment, that allows us to be alert. No, when we are about to cross boundaries. I always remember someone who told me, if you are sad or you are affected by your emotions or your moods, it's because you are not practicing enough. If you are disciplined and if you do what you've been told to do, or what you learned by reading these books and follow the instructions of these teachers, in the morning and in the evening and before going to bed, if you do something, you'll be all right. And I think that hissing is sometimes when, we are all humans. Sometimes people like to cross boundaries. My teachers used to say, you should show your teeth. show your teeth to others, you know. But you always keep your loving nature. You know? I think that's a secret, and a spiritual practice will help you get there. Yeah.
No, the other word was frightening there, because the snake could hiss so that he would frighten them, because they were harming him. And I remember reading Ramakrishna saying that the two examples, one was when they're in a boat, somebody was speaking ill of them.
Yes, yes, yes.
The person didn't speak up and should have, and in the instance.
Yes.
They spoke up and it wasn't, so I think those are like the subtle, subtle things we need to learn, not quite,
Well, in that particular case, he was addressing two different temperaments. Two different temperaments. He knew the nature of each other. They were his disciples, actually. So he sort of tightened, the screw that was a little loose to one, and again, he kind of, a little bit to the other, so that they both could understand, the teaching. A little bit, not too much, but again, at the same time, not too little. This life, it takes years and years of practice and understand that our own nature and dealing with others. That means our interaction with the world. We have to be patient with ourselves. And if we make mistakes, we have to be loving and to ourselves and to others and say, have patience, All right, I made a mistake again. But we should be alert enough, that's part of our spiritual practice, alert enough to learn from our mistakes. And we all make them. And that's the fun part of it. Anyway, let me thank you for allowing me to be here today and do the reading. It's an honor to do this. Sri Ramakrishna, Arpanamastu. Thank you. Well, so tomorrow we have a talk. Swami Dhyana Yogananda will speak on, what's the topic? Oh, yes. Bring meaning to Yes. We have to bring meaning into our lives. It's a beautiful topic, and I hope you can come. Thank you so much.